going to try this spark plug out of a Honda lawnmower, which is a NGK BPR 5ES. There we have it. Alright, that's good news. It's actually smaller than the shaft on the dial indicator, so I need to drill the center of this out until the dial indicator fits in nice and snug. Seems as though I might be through. In the manual, they want you to take the crank out, set it on a set of V blocks, set the rod parallel to the table, and then set a dial indicator against the back of the big end of the rod, and then try to move the rod back and forth. I think you're going to get a lot of false readings. The end of the big end on the rod is round, and the crank is going to try to rotate. There's a whole bunch of things that can go wrong. So I came up with this myself, and I think it is probably the best method that I've ever seen anywhere. And yeah, I am bragging. This is a spark plug with the hole drilled out to 3/8 of an inch. I used an end mill to drill it out so it's nice and clean, but you could just use a 3/8 drill bit. This threads into my spark plug hole. Just snug, it doesn't have to be super tight. My dial indicator then fits nice and snug inside of the hole. I'm going to make sure that the engine is on top dead center by doing two things. I'm pushing down on the piston on this side, and I have a wrench that is in through the intake, and then I'm using the 10mm wrench to push up on the bottom of the big end of the rod to take up all of the play in the bearing. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the dial indicator to 0. I'm going to double check this, so I have pressure with my thumb down on the wrench, making sure it's still indicating 0. And now when I push down with my finger gently, you can see it moves about 2 thousandths. So I'm pushing the piston down with the dial indicator with my finger, and then I'm pushing on my thumb on the wrench and pushing the piston back up. And that is telling me what my play and my big end bearing is. I'm going to have to check the manual, but I think I'm safe to continue running this. It's showing 2 thousandths on the gauge. I still have to check this side. I have a feeling that this one actually might be worse. I don't know why I think that. I just have a feeling that this side is more noisy. Anyway, I will set it up on this side and then come back and show you guys. Alright, so now I'm pushing down with my thumb. Make sure we're at bottom dead center. Set this to 0. Exactly the same 2 thousandths clearance, so I think I'm okay. I'm going to go check the manual, and I will get back to you guys. Alright YouTube, so I had a look at the service manual, and the maximum service limit on the big end bearing, or the maximum allowable play in the big end bearing, is 0.11 millimeters, which is about 4 thousandths of an inch, slightly over 4.3 thousandths, or 0.00433 inches. And I'm quite happy about that because I didn't really want to buy a crankshaft. So let's get this thing back together. I still have to flip the reed valves over, and yeah, let's get it back in and running. Just in case anybody's wondering, I figured I would show you. This is an 18 thou feeler gauge, and it slides right underneath the edge there. So It's about probably 16 thou of clearance. So yeah, I gotta take care of that. So it's actually not the new reed pedals. I was kind of blaming the Carbon Tech reeds that I put in. But yeah, not surprisingly, it's actually not their fault. I took this one apart and flipped the reed around and it still had the same gap, so it's not a curve. What I ended up figuring out was on the bottom of both reed cages, for some reason, the rubber is sitting slightly higher than the aluminum, so it may have swelled up or something over time. Basically, because it's thicker at this part than it was down here, when I tighten in the screws, it was causing the pedals to kind of warp out this way. So this one, I'm not sure if you can see, I actually took a file and a piece of sandpaper on the back of this thing and kind of smoothened it out some, and it's sitting quite a bit better now. Now that I know that it works, I'm going to take it apart and I'm going to do all 4 of them and make sure that they're seated perfectly well. Properly sealed reeds give you the best bottom end possible, so I want to make sure that they're sealed well because I do have problems with the bottom end power on my engine. Does anybody know why sometimes you put your battery in your Hero 7 and it won't turn on, and then you take it out, you put it back in and it turns on? Alright, I've got this all sorted out and I've got a 2/1000 feeler gauge now. And it lifts the pedal. So on this one, I think I got about 1 thou clearance still. That one's perfectly tight. This gauge. Yeah, these are all perfect. So I'm going to put my intake manifold back on. I'm not sure how much I'm going to film of putting the engine back in because I've already gone through that before, and it's not very interesting and it's kind of tricky to do. So the next clip you guys see me might be me starting this up. Not really sure. Alright YouTube, so I was getting ready to put my engine back in and I found out that I have a broken motor mount. So this motor mount was in the back left corner here. I've swapped it over to here because it's going to be easier to get at. And I've come up with a temporary solution. I've ordered a set of motor mounts, a brand new set. And I will install them when they come, but for now I'm going to try to make it so that I can actually test ride this thing. Alright, this is what I've come up with. I've got this head stud, I think, out of Kohler engine, maybe. I'm going to thread that into the old motor mount. And then this piece will go on here like this. Something like that. And then this is obviously the old motor mount. That's going to go on there like that. We'll take the nut off. So what I'm going to do on the back side to make sure that this stays together, I'm actually going to cut this part off and weld a washer on the inside. It won't have any stretch to it, but it will have some squish and cushion to it if I land hard off of bumps. And then it won't be able to come apart because the washer will be around here, welded to the shaft, and the nut will be holding it all in place from here. Instead of a washer, I've come up with a creative solution, and I've decided what I'm going to do is actually use this nut because it fits fairly snug in the hole and it will give me much more to weld to. Alright, here it is all welded up. And now I can bolt this back down, and I don't need to worry about that threading out because it will try to tighten no matter what happens. I'll put this on like this, and I get the nut on. When I tighten the nut down, it's a different size wrench, but when I tighten the nut down, basically either it will tighten the nut on the threads or the threads will tighten into the motor mount. Either way, I've got a tight motor mount, and that's all that matters. I've kind of got to wonder out loud how well this thing is going to work once I get it back together. I've dealt with the leaky head. I've put a gasket in there, but I've also bumped up the compression by using a thinner base gasket. That's also going to give me a better port timing because I've lowered the ports by lowering the cylinder. And also I had leaky reeds, so it'll be interesting to see how well this works the next time I have it on the water. On another note, I just got my Jet Pilot suit today. I think it's called the LRE. And so yeah, maybe next time I go out, I'll test that out as well. The water's been unbelievably nice, so yeah, maybe I'll test it, maybe I won't. I've never actually wore a wetsuit before, so it should be an interesting experience. It's going to be a very interesting video to see what this thing does the next time it's on the water, but that's going to have to wait for the next video. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Jump, 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 jump.
Funny when he fell. This is just like, I can't take it. I've fallen so many times and seen so many people take hard falls that like, I can't take somebody just falling over seriously. That's saying 175. 175 on the front cylinder. See how close. 175. Rear cylinder also 175. Fantastic. Right, we got Andy and BJ. We got an SXI, BJ's X2, my X2. And every one of them has had the engine apart in the last few days. So this is going to be an interesting session.